So continuing the momentum from chapter 198 to 199, it seems like Famine, or should I say Death, has a new plan to potentially restore humanity. And by that, she's now asking the fake Chainsaw Man and Famine to plunge mankind into abyss of terror. At this point, this universe is just so with the prophecy and what is to come. And there's a part of me that really believes that Death is trying to prevent whatever the hell is happening on the day of the prophecy. Why do I say this? Well, because the first page of chapter 199, Death reveals, look, even if I somehow died, who's to say that the new reborn again Death Devil wouldn't be less sympathetic towards humanity and would want to see the world be on fire and destroyed and all that stuff. And probably the biggest revelation that came out of this chapter is Death revealing, look, even if I were to not do anything on the day of the prophecy, for whatever reason, the increase in sheer terror of death that humanity will have for whatever reason will enable me to cause havoc whether I'm asleep or not. So this is something interesting that I brought up with my good friend No Operator when we talked about the reveal of Death last week, where we talked about the hierarchy of Chainsaw Man with the devils, right? You know, you got the fiends, you got the hybrids, you got the primal fears, and then you have the four horsemen. But who are the four horsemen listening to? Think of this like Charlie's Angel, but who's Charlie, right? We got the four horsemen, but there still has to be someone at the very, very top that these four have to listen to, whether they like it or not. And with what I'm reading here, it seems like Death, she's gonna do something that she can't control for whatever reason. So is there someone at the very, very top? I'll let you guys decide on that. Now, as I mentioned previously, when the fake Chainsaw Man asked if Death simply couldn't quit, this is where Famine proposes an alternative solution, allowing herself to be eaten by Chainsaw Man, thereby erasing the very concept of death and saving humanity. Death briefly considers this idea, but ultimately insists that if they truly wish to protect humanity, they must work with her. The two then agree, and then she says, well, now it's time to devour you two. And man, are those following panels fantastic, because you see her with the fork and the knife. The falling devil's like, here you go, ma'am. And she consumes them, or rather the crows consumes them, which enables her to turn fake Chainsaw Man and Famine into effigies that we saw back in the prison arc when she summoned Gilly. And was anyone expecting that? Like, I knew chapter 198 was setting that up, but I didn't think we would see the death of Famine right here and now after she was just introduced. Now, granted, there's probably a lot that Fujimoto is going to do with the Famine Horseman, but who's a little disappointed that Famine couldn't get out of this situation? I mean, how was she going to get out of this situation is probably a better question. But yeah, the fake Chainsaw Man and the Famine Devil, bon appetit, eaten, devoured, and now turned into these mind slaves for the Death Devil's amusement to get them to do her bidding. Now, the crows is an interesting metaphor that we've seen many people discuss. We thought the crows and the symbolism that it pertained with Makima being the control devil were one and the same, but now looking at what part 2 brought with the crows and how the crows were kind of hanging out when the fake Chainsaw Man devoured Yuko, when the crows were kind of chilling around anytime Asa was talking to Denji, we can see the crows definitely did not belong to Nayuta or Makima. It definitely belonged to Death, which, you know, makes sense because, you know, when it comes to crows and vultures and, you know, they just consume people. Yeah, if this is the way that Death is going to have devils become her pawns, I like this. But now it also gets me thinking something that maybe many of you have been thinking after reading this, and maybe some of you haven't. The conversation of Nayuta being brought back alive is now resurfaced. And if anything, I want to say 100% Nayuta is going to be brought back, and we are not going to get a new reborn again control devil because, well, we're already at the end game, and it seems like this chapter also moved the narrative much closer towards that final endpoint, with now Famine and the fake Chainsaw Man causing a wreck to humanity to get closer to whatever Death is actually planning. But going back to Nayuta, even though we saw her head on a platter, who's to say that Famine cannot do what she just did with the fake Chainsaw Man and Famine? And this is exciting because when you think about it, Nayuta, whenever she comes back as a husk or a former self of who she was previously, yeah, she's going to be a bit mindless. She's going to be a bit controlled, a bit ironic, right? The control devil now being controlled. I find that rather poetic. But now whenever she sees Denji in the future, Denji's going to be like, you are not the same Nayuta. And although now she lost a bit of herself, I do see something forecasted here where despite her losing a sense of her identity after what Death has done or the people that killed her in the Chainsaw Man Church arc, I think there will be this part of rebellion that will be set up for Nayuta to ultimately do the right thing to help out Denji and Asa in the endgame here. And if you want to consider this a weakness for the Death Devil, sure, I'll say that. She can control these powerful devils and they will do her bidding, but sometimes they will disobey her, like we seen with Gilly, like we just saw with Famine sucker punching her sister with a Shoryuken, with Nayuta following the same path at some point. But look at this trio right here of Famine, Death, and the fake Chainsaw Man. Man, the fake Chainsaw Man continues to be this mystery. I do like that Death actually confirmed in this chapter, this is the fake Chainsaw Man. There we go. That's what we can call him. No more fake Saw Man. Anyway, let me know what your guys' thoughts are on plunging mankind into this abyss of terror can somehow prevent or slow down this prophecy from Death awakening her powers fully. And where the hell is this story going to go next? Let me know in the comments down below. Once again, if you want the Chainsaw vs. War playmat, you can go ahead and get it for 48% off using discount code FUMIKO at my store Nen Garden. And to learn more about Chainsaw Man, you're going to want to click on this video right here. Another excellent chapter. How are you guys feeling about the Nintendo Switch and the price hike? Kind of crazy, right? $80 for Mario Kart? Are you fucking kidding me? Oh my God. Look, your boy is still down bad for a new Nintendo console, so I'm part of the problem. I know. But why are you still watching this? Fuck off.